Watkins Glen holds a very, very special place in the heart of ChampCar races. One of the most famous and well-regarded and well-loved tracks from the ChampCar Endurance Series. Now it's our turn in the ChampCar iRacing Series to go racing for round 5 for points in the Mazda ND Miata around this awesome and globally well-known circuit. Live coverage here on HJBC. As always, David Haynes with Devin Peters and Michael Derby. Devin, we've been loving the championship so far this year. We've been loving the quality of the racing. We've been loving the tracks we've been going to. And this is just something special.
Oh, absolutely, Haynes. And quality of racing, you got that right. Looking at our qualifying session so far, it is as tight as it's ever been at the top, and we've got a huge field and they're all jam-packed. That's 24 guys within a second of each other at the top of this field right now.
And it's sprint rounds, a 1-hour race coming up, but first this qualifying session. It's round 5 of 12 for this year, plus the extra 4 special 4-hour endurance races sprinkled throughout the calendar as well. We've got our rotating cast of cars, but this, I do believe, is the first time we have seen the ND Miata. We've had TCR, we've had NC, we have had the Ford Mustang, and the Toyota GR86. So it is time for this one. And boy, do people seem to love it. It's a bit twitchy, a little tail happy. But certainly that just means you need a little bit of skill to drive it, and it is very dynamic.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which generation of Miata you bring to the track, you're always going to have a good time. And a combination like this one virtually guarantees that we're going to see tight racing up and down the field. Lots of cars locked together in drafting battles, lots of bumping, lots of door banging, and I imagine that we're going to blink and this hour is going to go by.
It's a car that is known for its close and pack racing, and a circuit as well that really favors that as well. A slightly banked run through turn 1, but then flat out all the way up through the S's and the long run towards the formidable inner loop bus stop chicane, where you can gain time from jumping across those curbs, but it really is a leap of faith in these cars.
Yeah, and a track that requires a lot of faith, a lot of commitment around all those bends. You're going to have strictly enforced off tracks in turn 1 and turn 10 today. Drivers going all 4 wheels off in those zones off the curbing are going to get an off track. And expect to see guys working really hard through the inner loop. We've seen plenty of wrecking on the bus stop chicane in practice. We're hoping drivers will rein it in a little bit, maybe not take quite so many risks outside of qualifying. But it promises to be very exciting, especially the first time through when they're 2x2.
So just as the racing is going to be a challenge, so too is this qualifying session. We've seen this already with the Ford Mustang at Daytona, that in a big open qualifying session like this, traffic can help and it can hinder. The slipstream, very, very powerful, like we said, but then you get stuck behind someone on a qualifying lap. That is not where you want to be.
Yeah, watching right now, Jordan Butler in the Mario-themed car. Butler has gone out, actually showed up a bit late to qualifying and put in a pretty quick time, a 2:07.5, which has earned him second place as we run right now. He is getting dragged around by Ray Lombardi in the blue and white striped car, moderator over at that Spec 5 Miata series we broadcast on Thursday nights. And Jordan is, I think, hoping here that he's going to get enough draft in order to take Josh Soto off the top spot. And Jordan Butler showing up late. Well, Josh Soto showed up late. It didn't look like there was any more time left in this track, and Soto swept in and took the lead. So kind of a tight battle at the front here for qualifying, but also a battle that's depending a little bit on the drivers all around.
Absolutely. So as qualifying runs at the moment, it's Joshua Soto and Jordan Butler who are going to form the front row of the grid, and it will be a rolling start. So then second row, Owen Watson, Andrew Lanning. As they go at the moment, still some cars out there finding some improvement. There's some that absolutely won't and have kind of given up on their qualifying as it stands at the moment. Copeland, subtle improvement. Kyle Robertson just starting a lap that he will be allowed to complete. Even though there is only 30 seconds left on the clock, checkered flag will start waving at that time. Drivers can complete their flying laps, and it's cooling off a little bit as we get later into the day in session. So with a 1 hour qualifying session, the time set right out the gate in the first flying laps are still being improved upon as we go. Track temp was noticeably warmer at the start than it is right now.
It's tough to resist bump drafting when you're going through the S's, but these guys are having to hold off it. And two pretty significant guys, it must be said. Josh Soto in the 07 car is leading Owen Watts, third place on the grid in the other red and black car. Common theme in these Mazda Miatas, that red and black kind of livery.
The World Endurance prototype mandatory livery of years gone by. On board with Owen Watts third at the moment. None of these sectors an improvement. In fact, level in the first sector to his best time, 2/10 down in the second. So inside the car, his delta bar, his onboard time will be telling him 2 to 3 tenths down. Maybe a tiny bit more after he had to avoid one wrecked car there at the exit of the laces of the boot. There's only 2 drivers without a time, and Scott Grinnell is looking to finish one just to get himself off of the bottom of the timing table, which at the moment is 39th place. So any time that could maybe shoot him closer towards the top 20 would probably be good and much welcomed for Scott Grinnell. Here's the line for him, 39th. The lap counts, and he goes to 38th.
Hey! Good stuff, though, from Scott. It's going to be a slog in the back of this field with the amount of cars we got out today. 40 registered, 39 on the timing screen. We'll see how many of them take the grid. But I doubt that'll be the only bumper that we see tossed through the air tonight as we see drivers celebrating the end of qualifying. It's, and a quick lap there for Owen. Owen Watts manages to do it. In that last
he was 2/10 down in his second sector, and he went, you know what? To hell with you, David Haynes, and fair enough, fair play to him at the very, very last opportunity, snatching the pole position and the bragging rights that comes with that. It sets our bumper grid for round 5 of the ChampCar iRacing series in 2023. Owen Watts and Andrew Lanning. No, try that again, Michael Derby. Owen Watts is definitely on pole, though, sharing it with Joshua Soto, Jordan Butler, and Andrew Lanning, row number 2. Tim Wire and Peter Zhang are row number 3. Tim Wire with a great connection to this racetrack as part of the Team Salem's guys. They are massive fans of Watkins Glen and massive supporters, it must be said as well. We've got Ken Copeland and Ian Giebler on the next row. Ian Giebler and Ken Copeland and Ian Giebler. Colin Lounsbury and Kyle Robertson are row number 5, which is our top 10. All Florida, row 6 with Justin Hall and Orlando Harrell. Nick Dvornik and Azmath Mohammed, 13th and 14th. Yeah, that looks right. I think it's because we went a little early on trying to read out the grid, but fair enough. Yeah. And I was up to Mohammed, I think. So Andrew Gilliland and Ray Lombardi are the row after that. Aaron Siciliano and Garrett Meyer, 17th and 18th. And top half of the field is completed by Davis Trask and Sean Saputra. Over in 21st, Carlos Reyes and Bowie Sewen. Mark Kruger and Dakota Knapp, 23rd and 24th. Andrew Kosick and Nick Love, well known to each other, will be sharing the row back there. Joshua Jack and Alan Wells, followed by Aaron Thorpe and Ben Rose. And most of the field with qualifying times, which we saw there was plenty of reasons that you would struggle to set a qualifying time with track limits or bump drafting. David Palermo, William Salen, Billy Salen, Alex Harrison, David Warden, Jared Cubitt, Thomas Reyes, Charles Kowalczyk, and Scott Grinnell, the last driver with a qualifying time. Greg Platt is sans 1, but could still start the field from 39th if he desires. I decided pace truck today, and boy, does it dwarf these beautiful roadster race cars.
Oh, what a beautiful sight to behold. It's like one of those memes with the BMW, out on the grid next to these little bitty Miatas. But you need a truck that big to tow this many cars to the grid, I think. When we got 40 lining themselves up nice and tight on a shortened pace lap here at Watkins Glen, it must be said. They'll be lining up as they're coming out of the boot here. And we'll be seeing them all taking the grid here very shortly as they roll away.
60 minutes of ChampCar iRacing Series racing coming up. What do we expect to see? Well, definitely some very, very close pack racing, but also a required pit stop. All drivers starting the race on the same setup with 6 gallons of fuel. That is not enough to get them through an hour of Watkins Glen. So exactly when the drivers stop, how they handle the pit in and pit out here at Watkins Glen is in their hands. The pace truck is about to demonstrate how not to take pit entry. It cuts a very, very aggressive beeline to the pit entry, and waiting on the green flag come our drivers. And the pole sitter, Owen Watts, justly rewarded for that awesome qualifying time he set late on, leads the massive field of Global Mazda MX-5 Cup cars down into turn 1. Cold tyres are such a challenge on this race car. They were a challenge to light up in qualifying, but the driver's handling it well so far in the top half of the field, and the field is streaking and stretching its way all the way from turn 1 up through these S's for the first time.
Speaking of how difficult those cold tires are, we actually lost one as they were getting to the grid. As they were lining up, David Warden managed to get the thing pointed the wrong way and bounced it off a wall. He's back underway and rolling, well off the pace now in 39th. But the remainder of the grid has sorted themselves up, getting single file, and we're seeing their first trip through the bus stop. Oh, and it's sketchy in the back. That looked like a little bit of contact there between JJ, Joshua Jock, and that's Aaron Thorpe in the green and yellow car.
Yeah, a little more going on as well. These cars got some wicked airtime coming across the curbing there, and 2 wide doesn't really work. Oh, there's just a little hit, and then it tags 1, it tags 2, and there's one of those bumpers you thought we were going to see, Devin.
Yeah, it's always a tragedy, but luckily enough for these competitors, there is one fast repair on these cars, so 1 free bumper waiting for you in the pits, sir, and you won't even have to get on your back to put it back on.
Like we said, everyone's starting with 6 gallons of fuel, but it's not a limited fuel tank size. They can actually fill it now on lap 1 and get to the end from here if they want to. And so inside the front of the field, Andrew Lanning moving one up from 4th into 3rd.
Oh, and that's Colin Lounsbury pointed the wrong way. I think getting caught out a little bit by those cold tires. He takes a normal line through the corner, but loses it a little bit. Maybe gets a little bit out in the marbles. Anyway, he's facing the wrong way, and he's having to wait for the whole field almost to come by. Unfortunately, he didn't wait for everyone, and Thomas Reyes gets picked up as he's trying to whip it around. Thomas Reyes was running 35th at the start, so the 2 of them will be pitting back to the pit lane. Oh, you hate to see it.
So 3rd and 4th swapped places on the first lap. Behind them, Peter Zhang managed to pick off Tim Wire, and Ian Giebler managed to pick off Ken Copeland. So I'm noticing a trend there. I think the outside lane might have got a pretty good start, and it's looking like it's trending towards a 4-car breakaway here if they can make it happen. There are a lot of drivers so well experienced with this style of racing with this car, and the way they work together for maybe the first 55 of 60 minutes. Drama behind that as Ian Giebler gets sent into the Armco. who got his rear bumper?
By the looks of things, that was Ken Copeland. Copeland taking a slightly later braking point, and, well, you can't make contact there without someone paying the price. Man, a race director's going to have to get back on the radio and give these guys another talking to at the rate they're running each other off today.
A lot of damage on that car. Giebler, a previous race winner in ChampCar iRacing Series. But he's got a long way around on the full layout of Watkins Glen to get that back to the pit lane.
Ken Copeland, a name that's not unfamiliar to us. He's got some races over in the Spec 5 MX5 series. And I believe an Open Championship, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, you'd hope he'd find the braking zone a little bit easier than that, but it is tough to run these cars in a pack.
The braking boards are on both sides of the circuit up there before the inner loop bus stop. You can look left or you can look right and spot the 300, 200, 100 marks. In fact, I think they start at 600 feet before that corner. Something. There's a lot.
The NASCARs.
There's a lot. Yeah, true. Them old stock cars. Bit of side-by-side here for Andy Kosick. He gets past Dakota Knapp. Lanning sets the fastest lap of the race officially. They will keep getting quicker as those tyres grip up and come in, and also as they push each other along a little bit. Who's a big mover off the start of this race? Yeah, Gilliland up 4. Mark Kruger, though, tuning his way through the field from 23rd on the grid to 14th at the moment, and he is on the back of a train that stretches all the way up to 5th place as well. In fact, almost all the way up to the lead. It's not quite it's unbroken between 4th and 5th now.
Yeah, Peter Zhang's managed to find a little bit of ground, and he's hanging on the back. The top 4 are running nose to tail, just barely a hair between them. And on the front, I think that they're touching bumpers. No in ChampCar world, but permitted in the iRacing series. But the two, other than those 4, the remainder of the pack has kind of managed to sort themselves up and get caught back up. And well, if they manage to hold it together, I have a feeling that we might be on for a heck of a race with 14 guys all competing for that #1 prize.
There's a reason these cars are so popular and so exciting to race, and this is it. You really can't get away without a big mistake from your competitors or a lot of luck. Once we get to the pit stops, though, that presents an opportunity to overcut, undercut, think about maybe short fueling, do something creative if you want to try to get away from this pack mentality. The top 4 absolutely caught now. And Peter Zhang was almost even having a little bit of a look there where Jordan Butler might have even made a little bit of progress. Between Hall in 9th and Dvornik in 10th, though. A little bit of a gap.
Yeah, that's probably the closest thing that we could call to a gap at this point. Hall is breaking away ever so slightly, but these things do throw a pretty long draft, and with only 1 second between those 2 cars right now, it's going to be hard for Hall to really get away. Thinking they'll need more like 1.5, 2 seconds. Azimuth Mohammed in the background there had to take some real evasive action around. That was Orlando Harrell who got turn 1 a little bit wrong. Azimuth now takes the spot, and Mark Kruger's looking to make a few more positions here because he's got the draft and the momentum up the S's. He's side by side here on the outside of Harrell, lining up behind Azimuth. Discretion, the better part of valor, though, going into that bus stop. And he'll stay in the spot.
Yeah, you got to work it out a little bit before you get in there. You can't really 2 cars dive in side by side in there and expect to cleanly make it out. Bit of a kerfuffle a little further up the order here over sort of 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Owen Watts out to a 1-second lead here. Soto's gone backwards. Butler's gone backwards. So Zhang gains a spot, and Andrew Lanning gains a spot up into 2nd as well at the toe of the boot. Still, Tim Wire almost getting sandwiched there.
Whew. Copeland and Wire were so close together there at the apex. That was wild. Up ahead, we got Butler up the inside and Soto up the inside going into the toe. The heel.
It's okay. You've got to imagine the shape of a boot and then exactly where that matches up on the circuit to remember laces, toe, heel. But there we are, turning back onto the NASCAR Cup part of the section and therefore into the view of the largest grandstands around the circuit. They're very tactical with where and how they've placed them. A lot more sort of don't want to stay in line, a lot more side-by-side racing starting to emerge in this leading field here, and a lot more jockeying for position is what I like to call it.
Yeah, Zhang narrowly gets cut there by Jordan Butler in that Mario car. The two of them, though, are going to need to find a way to work together, because right now Owen Watts is running away at the front, and it's what you dream of when you're in one of these drafting cars. All of a sudden, everyone from second on back got themselves into a little fight. 1 second gap between Soto and Watts at the front.
Certainly good racing to watch at the moment. Side by side into turn one. Less sketchy than in other places, but the driver on the inside really wants to hook a little bit of that apex curb because it helps you rotate through and carry your speed. When you're a little bit wide of it, you can find yourself in trouble. But hard to spot the teammates here, and this is definitely a teammates kind of car for a teammates style of racing. If you've got a buddy, if you've got a dance partner, it can really help you. They are chopping and changing 3 wide up the hill towards the inner loop. Nick Love wants to get his man in the sandwich, but he gets turned into the Armco and he loses a front bumper.
Yeah, that was Saputra who put himself into the wall there, but it's kind of tough to put the blame on anyone. He was close to Carlos Reyes and he managed to turn himself across the nose. I was chuckling at the fact that Bowie Suin out at the front of that group, the green and black car who shot the middle, well, his sponsor on his car on the rear bumper or rear trunklet, it says me. The rest of the drivers on the team have a different team sponsor. So I think we know who he's racing for tonight, livery or not.
Good enough, fair enough. Joshua Soto back to the lead of the race, ahead of Owen Watts, Andrew Lanning and Jordan Butler. Carl Robertson, 4 spots gained, is in 6th in this train. Tim Wire having plenty of fun there as he went side by side with Ken Copeland, and those two have been in very, very close quarters lately. Some aggressive racing in that part of this pack. Kruger has dropped one, and Aaron Siciliano also dropping a little bit.
I do think that tire wear might become a factor, just judging by the amount of tire smoke we're seeing off some of these cars in the lead pack. There are some guys that are being very aggressive with their steering inputs right now to try and whip these things around the corners. And there's lines that work in this track for 1 lap and in this car for 1 lap's pace, and other lines that work better for a longer run. And I'm afraid that a few of these guys are going to find out which kind of line they've been running.
Running the high line or running towards the apron on a short track or something like that, potentially. So this is the leading field from Soto back to, I'd say, about Kruger. You can still see him in shot.
Yeah, it's a pretty tight pack. We see Justin Hall cutting the apex as they come off the bus stop there, the inner loop, whatever you want to call it.
I'm much more comfortable calling that the inner loop than I'm calling Daytona bus stop the Le Mans chicane. But all things will grow on us in time.
Yeah, I'll give you that. But here we are. No, they've managed to close it up though, and I got to think that Watts' move
makes contact and spins around Justin Hall, parked in such a precarious position at the toe of the boot. He finds reverse gear to try to get out of there.
And the two of them, Azmat Mohammed is facing the wrong way as well, and they're going to be stuck here. I can't imagine how Azmat's going to get this thing turned around without a 5-point turn. He's going backwards down into the grass to try and find a little bit, but you got to be careful. You can get yourself disqualified on iRacing doing this. Oh no! And I think he has. Oh, that's unfortunate. Doing the right thing, but he gets himself booted off the track.
Justin Hall now back in 21st. Top 7 now looking as a breakaway. with 8th and 9th colliding functionally.
Yeah, that split the top 10 up for sure. So now Tim Wire and Andrew Gillen are going to kind of have to be on their best behavior if they want to get back to the pack.
We've seen gaps that would look insurmountable get closed up in the snap of a finger as well. In these cars, you just need 2 drivers willing to work together, willing to bump each other up through the S's, and suddenly they've got 5 miles an hour more than anyone else in a car where 110 miles an hour is a big speed.
Yeah, it's definitely the most time you'll spend in the S's of any car kind of going up the field.
So no hints of anyone thinking, let's stop early to get out of traffic, because the reality is it'd probably see you drop back into different and more interesting traffic. And a problem there for Joshua Soto. He drops backwards from the lead of the race back into 4th, back into 5th even.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure what the plan was there. I'm not... Like, it looks like maybe it's a lift. He wants to run and get some gas. Kruger's losing a heck of a lot of time, too. I think we just caught him on replay. He was going real slow in the short shoot. He, of course, up 9 spots since the start of the race, has given up a few there. Now only up 4 from where he started. And while we've looked away, Justin Hall's had a moment. Oh, no, we saw that moment for Justin Hall. He was facing the wrong way, had to get it whipped around, but he's lost 10 spots since the start. So those are kind of our biggest movers on the back half of the field.
Peter Zhang has a big move in towards turn 1, gets 2 for 1, up into 2nd place. And now he wants Owen Watts to push him towards the race leader, Andrew Lanning. I think everyone has had their chance with... pass the parcel here in the top 7. Do North American kids play that? And everyone gets their turn at the race lead, but it's not forever.
We call it hot potato up here.
Oh, potato's a different thing. Okay. Probably you do. Believe you. Well, okay, they're playing hot potato, and everyone has had their chance to handle the warm carbohydrates.
Yep.
I've never said anything like that, and probably will never say it again. Big move here into the laces from a couple cars. Peter Zhang has a look put on him from Owen Watts, and I think Robertson had a go on Joshua Soto, who's now all the way back into 7th place, not looking especially racy, but the rest of them sure are in this leading group.
Yeah, I'm thinking that there's either some fuel saving or some discretion going on. I think Soto has seen the other guys that qualified around him lose a lot of time through no fault of their own. Watts, on the other hand, doesn't seem to be afraid of anything. He must have a superstar hiding in that car somewhere that he's waiting to pull out at some point down the road. But he has been very brave. We've seen throughout the race. Andrew Lanning, though, new leader at the front of the field. We haven't seen him in the 1st place position yet. Looking clean in that car.
It almost trips me up because there used to be an Australian senator called Andrew Laming. Laming, not Lanning, and he was quite a mean man. Anyway, Lanning leads this one, and I got to make sure I say his name right and give him the credit he is due. He has looked pretty consistent, and they have started squabbling behind him, which has helped him maintain that hot potato of a lead. But here comes Butler pushing Zhang. Owen Watts in the double, triple toe. Kyle Robertson, he pulls out. Going to get 3 wide. We are. Robertson really backs in the momentum that he had to pass 2 cars. He cannot make it 3. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, he's running that green and black livery shared with Bowie Suin and another car out there, Garrett Meyer. But yeah, another one of the team cars, and he's doing really well for himself. That was a heck of a move. And he's good for another one here.
He is. He pulled a move here in the laces a lap ago, and he looks like he's got it pretty confident. It's a sketchy corner. You're braking downhill as you turn in, and the Armco and the tyres and the wall is closer there than it is almost anywhere else. So very unsettled, the car sometimes on the way in. Lanning also had a big wide run. He got out very, very wide on the exit of the outer loop and was lucky to keep it off the grass from what I could tell. Butler position, all in line, pushing along.
Kind of funny. I think Lanning is timing the liftoffs with the guy behind, with Zhang behind, because the two of them were both well off the throttle before hitting the brakes there going into the corner. So a lot of fuel saving kind of going on in this front group at this phase of the race.
And it's a group of 9. Soto back there in 8th, but still part of this leading group. You might have seen something he didn't like, and he decided, I will sit at the tail of this field for the moment. Peter Zhang's going for the race lead down the inside towards turn 1. No defense whatsoever offered from Lanning, who immediately just drops straight back in behind.
Good stuff. It's a little risky to push up this hill, though. Oh, too wide.
They get out a little to the right-hand side, and Kyle Robertson looks to the left, but he'll be out high and dry if you think about Talladega-style, 2-lane bump drafting, slipstreaming going on here. You've got 2 rows, and Lanning is on the inside. Around the outside, is contact inevitable? No, they just managed to get away with this so far. Sketchy moment as they try to go too wide into the inner loop.
Yeah, it's a little early for that, boys. We got 40 more minutes of racing left. A few of the guys seem to have forgotten, but it's all guns a-blazing up here at the front, and attrition might still make its presence felt. Who's that facing the wrong way? Oh, that's Nick Dwornik, the only Canadian in the front, picked up by Kyle Robertson, who got it a little wrong onto the laces that time. And Robertson, it looks like the front end of that thing is trash. He's not going to be able to limp it around to the pits, and neither is Dwornik. And you hate to see the only Canadian at the front get binned. You just really hate to see it.
It comes undone at the laces, and they both trip up, unfortunately, but just trying to brake aggressively offline. I think bit off a little more than he could chew that time around for the drive trainer car of Kyle Robertson.
It does kind of, in some respects, the ChampCar Endurance Series is a sprint race in the real world, but it's also a series about managing your pace. You got to get that car to the front of the field, but you got to do it in a way that's safe. You got to race safely with other drivers. So it always hurts to see it happen in the sprint races, but you always got to have your head on the swivel, whether it's a real race or a sprint race.
So recapping 20 minutes of racing already, and Andrew Lanning leads. Jordan Butler from Peter Zhang, Ken Copeland and Owen Watts. Joshua Soto and Andrew Gilliland just off this group at the lead. And then it's a big flurry of cars again with Davis Trask, Tim Wire, Orlando Harrell, Carlos Reyes and Bowie Suin.
Yeah, and there's going to be some guys out here that are still points racing. Of course, $1,500 on the line for guys who, for our first place overall winner on the season. So Justin Hall has already driven himself back up to 16th place after dropping as low as 24th, and he's in the points consideration. We have also got Josh Soto, of course, running back there in 6th place. He's currently in 2nd place in the points. No shows from our 1st and 3rd place championship drivers today. Alex Albert leading the points, and Mark McCormick in 3rd. But Tim Wire, another name who's definitely in the points consideration. Tim's running in 9th place right now. So we've got more than a few drivers out there that are going to be thinking about the season-long perspective on this race, that's for sure.
Here is Tim Wire, resplendent in the Salins livery. I say long time supporters of all kinds of racing here at Watkins Glen, and they've got a couple of his teammates elsewhere in the field as well. I don't think any of them have retired. So where is Billy Salen up to? 21st. And just behind his teammate Alan Wells, I think, who is another 10 seconds up the road. And they're all in a subtly different version of the colours.
Mm-hmm.
I like the one that's predominantly yellow. Just, reminds me of mustard. I think is Alan Wells.
No, I think that's the Bill car. That's Bill's car. But gotta respect, keep ketchup off hot dogs, people. Ooh, and things are getting spicy back at the front. Lessons learned recently have been forgotten. We're too wide through the S's and trying to make it too wide into the inner loop here. That's Owen Watts who's backing out, and Peter Zhang who's diving in on the outside of Jordan Butler. Two tires
so
in the
risky,
grass.
and he gets out of shape, and there's three of them that are going to end up in the wall.
Oh man, and that's what racing with 35 minutes to go gets you. Ooh, there's going to be some hot drivers in the pits after this one, I gotta think.
From around the outside, so much of the second curb gets it out of shape, cannot gather it up, helps Butler into the wall.
Yeah, and Butler's still running, and they're starting to come up on some lap traffic here. Butler's leading the race now with that's Carlos Reyes and Bowie Suin ahead. Do I got that right? He's not leading the race, is he?
No, Andrew Lanning leads from Owen Watts and Joshua Soto. So Soto has picked his way through all of that, and from leading the race at one point back to 9th place, he finds himself back in a top 3 breakaway because they've got 1.5 seconds to Andrew Gilliland in 4th. And then it's 3 Ohioans in a row, Gilliland to Trask to Wire.
Yeah, actually, and that adds up. Those two, Owen Watts and Josh Soto, qualifying 1-2, running 2-3 right now. They got their heads on the big picture. They're racing for the win, not for the fun. And they've put themselves in a position here now where they're going to be able to cruise behind Andrew Lanning a little bit, save a little bit of fuel, and then push really hard at the end here, I got to think.
6 gallons goes a long way in a ND Miata. So they carry on racing. The only drivers we've really seen through the pit lane are those that had a lot of damage they really wanted to get repaired, like Jordan Butler, who's come around, but then looking for his crew. He qualified 3rd, so he'll be looking for pit bay number 3, not far from pit exit.
Yeah, it looks like he's taking some tires. Curious to know if that's going to be the fastest move around here today. We'll have to see. Watching
By some, you mean left-hand ones?
Yeah, actually. Curious. I'm watching in the middle of the pack here. Bowie Suin and Garrett Meyer racing for 9th and 10th place are having a heck of a battle with Carlos Reyes right now. So that may have been part of the reason that Butler decided to get out of the way of this, because those green and black cars, they're not to be trifled with. Garrett Meyer holds there in Cecilio on the outside, and by the looks of things, Bowie got a bit of a better run than Carlos Reyes. I'm hearing also from the chat that the me on Bowie's car is not just because he's racing for himself. It's also because of their sponsor me shirts. So got to give a shout out to anyone supporting the teams out here. Gonna be too wide into the heel this time. Carlos Reyes makes a nice move up the inside.
He does. Very easy to spot in the upstate New York afternoon. trending towards the evening as we get through this race. Joshua Soto elects to pit from third place, and I think this is a strategy call with 32 minutes to go. The rest of the field carry on, so it is an early stop, and it is a little tactical, but it will show his hand to those he was racing against: Andrew Lanning, Owen Watts, Andrew Gilliland, the other three drivers you would say best in with a chance of the race win. He has pit stall number 2 by virtue of qualifying in second place, and he will get, at a minimum, left side tyres with his fuel. Left sides only by the looks of things. Real NASCAR strategies.
Yeah, really curious around here because, the cold tires were a bit of a struggle at the start. And so you got to think, putting the cold tires on the left, what's that going to feel like once you're in the car? And a quick stop from him too. I wonder if the plan was actually just to obscure a little bit how much fuel was going into that car.
He's out.
I was going to say, worth shouting out, we got Andrew Lanning and Owen Watts running up front, but currently third place on the track is Davis Trask. And I've seen Trask do a lot of laps in the ChampCar iRacing series, but he's up 15 spots since the start of the race. So impressive little run for him.
In a little bit of a no man's land between the top three, and you can see Orlando Harrell and Tim Wire behind him very, very close. Pit entry coming around for these drivers this time. 10 seconds away from the halfway point of this race. In some sense, it feels natural or logical to have your pit stop around about now. So we'll see what drivers opt to do. A lot of them hanging it tight from the apex of the final corner and going towards pit entry. Lanning, Watts and Gilliland are, but Trask and Harrell, it looks like not. Tim Wire, he needs some condiments on his hot dog.
A little bit of racing going on in the pit lane there too. I don't know if Lanning got it a little bit wrong, but he's managed to let Owen Watts by on the way in as they were kind of checking up, and Watts will stop deep into the box. Oh, did he get it stopped in time? He didn't. He had to back up. Oh, and that hurts. That might be the difference between leaving first and leaving in third.
Looks like pit lane speed limit is about 40 miles an hour here, and always nice to get just a little bit of that damage uncrinkled.
Soto comes by on the outside of 1, and a long stop there from Watts. Was it 4 tires?
4 tires for Wire there is what we saw. So he comes out a little bit behind those other guys because his stop was 26 seconds. Lanning stopped 27. I reckon he probably also took 4 there, and they rejoined behind Joshua Soto. Owen Watts rejoins almost exactly behind Joshua Soto. And these two have got time in hand over the others they were racing before. My spidey sense says at the moment your two best placed drivers sitting pretty are Joshua Soto and Owen Watts.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with that bit of analysis there, Haynes. Also worth noting that they had pretty short pit stops, the two of them, relative to sort of the averages that we're seeing around the field. So either they're saving a lot more fuel than some of the other guys, or they're being much more aggressive in their fuel calculations. Will be interesting to see.
And then interesting to think how far ahead Owen Watts would be if he hadn't overshot his pit box there. Cost him about 2 or 3 seconds. So he might have actually instead, without that, been a little further ahead of Soto. Instead, he rejoins the race just in behind. And can you see him struggling with the tyre warm-up a little bit here compared to Soto, who pitted the lap earlier and is pushing on? You would expect Watts to be all over the rear bumper of Joshua Soto, and in fact, he kind of was coming up the S's. But then as they got into more of the corners, Watts just having to work a little harder to stay in touch, and he gets a little kiss on the grass. A couple more drivers pitting, Garrett Meyer and Bowie Sewin, but still no pit stop from Davis Trask, Orlando Harrell, Carlos Reyes, Ray Lombardi, or Andy Kosick. are the top 5 cars running.
Yeah, and things are well and truly spread out at the front of the field. Got Garrett Meyer pitting from 6th place. We're seeing on the lane with the teammate Bowie Suin just behind him. Kind of interesting to see how this is all shaken out. So despite the early wreck, Justin Hall's only running about, is that 4 seconds at the line? I must be reading that wrong. He's not that close. Looks like he's much more than that. 30 seconds behind.
Between Mark Kruger and Peter Zhang at the moment. They're going to gain a couple of spots as they pass Garrett Meyer, but Tim Wire back on the lane for a second time. Did he maybe crash on 4 cold tires?
Definitely possible. This has been a long trip on the lane for him.
He's got a black flag. So...
Yeah, he drove in, though. I'm wondering if maybe
I bet
speeding?
it's his pit exit. No, I bet it's his pit exit from the first pit stop, because on those cold tires, the car wants to push out wide, but if you don't get penalized for going over the yellow line on the pit entry, but you do on the pit exit. So if you go over the yellow line on the pit exit blend, you get a penalty. Hard in mouth moment for our race leaders Joshua Soto and Owen Watts, as Ben Rose was getting involved in a little bit of an incident here. Oh, it starts.
It was Colin Lounsbury, who got on the grass, and Colin had that bad rejoin earlier. He's learned a lesson and backed it off. But then the 2 leaders continue on, and they're also dodging Ben Rose. And who's that? One of the Salem's cars who's gotten caught up in it as well. So a little bit of a drama for them. This race has gotten all kinds of disconnected at this point. So Josh Soto and Owen Watts leading. Andrew Lanning 5 seconds back, maybe 10 at the line. And Andrew Gilliland, I think we would say, is running 4th. Trask 5th, with a few cars left to pit ahead of them.
Correct. That is how I would call it. Orlando Herald going deep into this one before making his stop. Same for Carlos Reyes, Ray Lombardi, and Andy Kosick. But it seems like a lot of other drivers elected to stop earlier, not because they were running out of fuel, but because they knew they'd have to make a stop at some point, and they thought, well, when I make that stop, I'm going to want to put at least new left side tyres on. So they've made that stop closer to the middle of the race to even it out the stint lengths on the tyres and be able to make more undercut with the new tyres.
Yeah, 2 tires definitely worth something around here. We're seeing that in the lap times of the drivers up at the front. They're right back on pace for what they were managing in qualifying.
Joshua Soto might not love this.
Yeah, getting a little bit of lap traffic, having to find his way around Charles Kowalczyk, and kind of seeing that all over the place as the leaders are filtering through the lapped cars and dealing with the off-cycle pit strategies. Justin Hall's just had a little bit of a battle with Peter Zhang. Zhang's looking up the inside again. As Hall has to take a move up the inside too on Mark Kruger. And got to think that these are for position at the end of the race. Going by here on the outside, that's not our leader, Andrew Lanning. That's team car Dakota Knapp.
Gets swallowed up in quick order, and a couple of them pass him, and Hall moves up past Kruger to go to the front of this train.
Hall's doing a pretty good job on the recovery drive so far, must be said. And if he and Zhang and Kruger can hold it together for a little bit here, they might be able to make even a few more spots.
22 minutes to go and just 3 cars yet to make their pit stop in this race, and they are the 3 that run out front of Herald, Lombardi and Kosick. But 4 drivers behind them, Owen Watts and Joshua Soto, having taken the fuel on board to get them to the end. They are in a very strong position, 10 seconds ahead of Andrew Lanning, who's then a couple seconds ahead of Andrew Gilliland and David Trask, who could work together to maybe catch him for what would be a podium position.
Yeah, they're coming around Colin Lounsbury here. Lounsbury's staying wide for them. It is curious to me that they have managed to have pit stops that are almost 5 seconds shorter than almost everyone else on the field. I know they were fuel saving in the first half, but I'm not sure if that quite adds up to me. We'll be curious to see if they've got enough come the end of the race.
The next closest, I guess, is Bowie Stewin, 52-second lane time. Carlos Reyes, 53, plays basically 50 for Watts and Soto. Here's Kosick, so then there were just 2 left out front.
Yeah, Kosick in that blue car there. Learned the origin of the most name earlier tonight. What was a 76 Pontiac that he said every single panel was beaten in on. So he paints all the cars in honor of that ugly beast. That was quite mint and fresh.
So paint them in honor of he didn't take any tyres at that pit stop just then, fuel only. We'll see if he struggles with that towards the end of the race compared to those around him where he rejoins, which I think is going to be behind Giebler, but in front of Justin Hall and Peter Zhang. Look at the pit exit here. There's a yellow line there. And if you are too quick on pit exit and you go out wide of it, you can get a penalty like Tim Wire. So we call them the race leaders, and they will become the race leaders, but there are still 2 cars in front of them who haven't made a pit stop, for Owen Watts and Joshua Soto running in formation here. Championship-wise, Soto's got a little more on his plate where he would want the win potentially more, but also have more to lose with the DNF. As you look at the championship standings here, Joshua Soto second to Alex Albert.
Good showing from Davis Trask. He's running 7th after the pits have cycled through here. Maybe with a couple more spots to gain, maybe 5th once the pit stops cycle through, and he's currently 6th in the points.
And the pit stops are cycling through because Orlando Herald and Ray Lombardi are in, as well as, who's in the all yellow? Is it Wells or?
That's Bill Salem.
Halen. Okay. Yes, it is. So they find their crews. Herald, the driver, in predominantly white, Lombardi with the blue strikes, and before they are even partway done with their fueling, and it is only fueling, having gone this deep into the race, Watts, Soto, Lanning are all past them.
Yeah, and Lounsbury and Salem are in a battle, so Salem will be trying to get back up to speed as quick as possible. Deep down the order there. And you wonder at what point Watts is going to decide to turn on, Soto's going to decide to turn on the aggression, because the 2 of them are definitely saving some fuel. But if you're Soto and you can save a little bit extra, maybe you've got enough that you can actually break away, a little earlier, put a little pressure on earlier, and force Watts to run a little bit tighter on fuel than you. A little bit of a battle deeper in the field. If you look at Carlos Reyes for 9th, Ian Giebler 10th and 11th, Bowie Sewin. 3 of them just had nearly a coming together going into the inner loop.
That's absolutely been the action zone. Typically, the corner at the end of the longest straight sees at least some amount of action, and here it's a really tough single line corner. And when in these cars, they are very bouncy and floaty as they go across the curbs there. No downforce to help plant them, and quite the trick tunable suspension of some other cars to help them absorb and ride those bumps.
Yeah, you definitely get the full effect even with those nice shocks that come on the MX-5 Cup cars. Soto running a little closer here down the front straight this time. Don't know if it's time for a move just yet. Stays in line for another corner. Tension starting to build up front, though.
Yeah, and I wonder how much it plays into their thinking that they have got this 4-lap down car that they are not shaking. It goes to show exactly how strong and magnetic the slipstream can become, that they've just caught him and dragging along Lounsbury with them, not part of their lead fight for first and second. But, you know, we can see this race out on his own terms, and it just so happens that where he's ended up is behind the leaders here, and is really enjoying slipstreaming them in the key parts of this racetrack.
Yeah, it makes a big difference on the lap times if you can stick with them for a few laps. Get you a few extra positions there. Checking out the back half of the top 5, Davis Trask and Andrew Gilliland are having a little bit of a battle. Last time past the line, Trask had the advantage, but Gilliland got him down into turn 1 in the blue and red striped car. And now he's going to have to defend as Trask makes a move up the inside here into the toes. Pretty nicely executed too, pretty clean. I think he'll even get the run that you want. And he's going to be able to hold this spot. We'll have to see what the draft does by the end of this straight. Not quite enough, I'm going to think. So Trask manages to take the spot back, but a little bit of a squabble here going on, like I said, on the back half of the top 5.
And C. Lanning not too far away, and almost caught him some amount of time on the previous lap. There's not a whole lot of laps left. As you count them now, they're doing lap times just over 2 minutes. 2:09 for the leaders is kind of the pace we're working with. So it looks like 7 more when the leaders took the line last time.
Interestingly, it does look like they're saving some fuel. I mean, Lanning managed a 2:08.1 last time by, so he's taken nearly a second and a half out of the guys ahead. And he's only 8 seconds back, so if he's well and fueled, he might have something to say about this battle if those two keep fuel saving as hard as they are.
Yeah, if Lanning can catch him a second a lap, he's going to look good. And it may also speak to how Lounsbury is sticking with the race leaders here as well. Watts and Soto could be both substantially short on fuel. Soto with no desire to lead at this point as well maybe speaks to that.
Yeah, I think we got ourselves a good old-fashioned fuel battle up at the front. I think that's about right. Gives us some time to look around, though. Kyle Robertson is a few car lengths clear here, though, of Mark Kruger down in 16th place, holding off Kruger in 17th. Robertson, though, got to be riding high despite having those issues earlier in the race after winning the last $250 door prize that we drew for the ChampCar iRacing series. Drivers today are, of course, entered into the second leg of that door prize draw. So every 4 races on the season, if you attend 3 out of the 4, you get entered into, 4 out of the 4, all 4 in a row, you get entered into the draw for 250 champ bucks. So a pretty good deal just for showing up. Take your virtual racing fun and turn it into real racing fun, you know?
Oh, look, that there was 12 other cars faster than Owen Watts and Joshua Soto last lap. Very interesting to see that. And again, around about 209.5. Lanning doesn't have quite the hot lap he had the previous time, and instead only takes 7/10 out of them. Things getting interesting. Carlos Reyes and Ian Giebler, as they have caught Ray Lombardi, and they are 3 wide, 4 wide on the front stretch. Bowie Suin is going Hail Mary in towards turn 1 and doesn't get Giebler. And then Reyes goes over under on him, and they are having birds fighting over a crumb.
Hey, the back half of the top 10 still worth some points, and Ray Lombardi cleverly remembering that there's no more runoff there, no more grass for the NASCARs to run into, so he decides to use the whole thing, and they're 3 wide going into the inner loop. Oh, I've seen this one before, and it usually ends in tears. Oh. And Ian Giebler, I think, did everyone a favor by turning that into a 2x2 kind of situation, braking real hard on the outside and making sure everyone got through safely. But in the meanwhile, Ray Lombardi's managed to open himself up a bit of a lead. He's got about a second on the guys behind. Oh, that's fun stuff.
And I was going, who's the wolf among the sheep? The lap down car here that I didn't spot on my timing, and it is Azmuth Mohammed's 1 lap down to these guys at the tail of the field, and probably very glad to be having a little bit of slipstream given what's missing off that one.
3 wide again down the chute, and that's going to be Ian Giebler this time on the outside with the lead. Oh, and there's 3 wide through the apex. This isn't the fastest way to do this. 5 laps to go, though. Battles are starting to heat up.
It might be the funnest, though. Reyes gets them all snookered on that.
And Ray Lombardi keeps driving away.
Lanning to cross the line right now and only pull 0.4 of a second out of the leaders this time. It's not quite as rapid as it was earlier on. They might have finished off a little bit of their saving, and the new tyres for Lanning might be hitting a little bit of a plateau, because I think Lanning took 4. Indeed, we saw Lanning take 4. And Watts and Soto both only taking left sides, I think, and also not taking on board as much fuel. Lounsbury's thinking, can I get past you guys? Thinks about it and goes, who's next for position for me? And the answer is 5 minutes up the road is Alan Wells.
Yeah, I think today's the day to study what the guys ahead are doing.
This is on the job training.
Yeah. Justin Hall and Peter Zhang are having a bit of a do here at the back of the field. Justin Hall right on the bumper as they go through the S's, jumps it out wide. He's taking the long way around, so he's tough out here. And I wonder, does he not want the spot just yet? Was that why he took that extra wide line through there? Either way, he won't be taking it this time into the inner loop.
Giebler and Suin have both found the wall at the inner loop this time by as well. And there is Giebler with the damage, and Suin, yes, parked up. This is how it happened. They're both well and truly to the inside here. And I'm surprised we still have that camera.
Yeah. I'm thinking that both were pretty ambitious with the line that could have existed on, but Bowie definitely closed the door pretty hard on Giebler, and Giebler didn't have much of anywhere to go by that point. Tough situation all around. Both of them. Bowie back in the pits towed. Giebler still circulating, despite some damage.
So it's first, second, lapped car, and third on your screen as they break down in towards turn number 1. And for Lanning, he is still lapping solidly in the 2-minute 8s to the leader's low 209s.
Yeah, 6/10 that last time.
I don't think for Watts or Soto at this point there's any ambiguity about how many laps are left in this race, though. It's not touch and go. It's pretty damn clear that it was 4 more as they took the line just then.
Yeah. And, really just kind of expert racing going on with these two. Just comfortably leading the way, firmly in control. Had a glimpse there of Davis Trask and Andrew Gilliland looking pretty tight together for 4th and 5th place. Split up a little as they got through the inner loop this time, but I imagine they'll be back together by the end of the lap. Both of them racing for a podium. That's now we've got Peter Zhang and Justin Hall on the screen, though, not racing for a podium. Zhang missed the inner guardrail there by about a millimeter, I gotta say. And Justin Hall is right up on the bumper again.
Spotting someone ate a chunk of the guardrail here. It might have been Bill Salen, who looks like he's a little slow and wounded in front of the group we were looking at, Zhang and Hall.
And off the outside, that's Muhammad again.
Yeah.
And he's kind of gotten it wrong into the toe there. Just locked up the rears.
There's Salen off the road at the back of shot. So all happening in the boot.
I think it's tough at this point in the race, to keep your concentration flowing, especially if you don't have a real good battle for position.
It's been absolutely non-stop as well, the whole last 55 minutes for most of these guys. Leaders, are they ramping it up a little bit? Potentially Soto looking around the outside for the first time in half an hour, sniffing for the race lead on Owen Watts. Andrew Lanning still 6 seconds behind them. And we're inside the final 5 minutes of this race. A switch has been flicked, a trigger has been pulled, and Joshua Soto leads the race.
Yeah, Soto's been studying, and we get to see what he learned. Made that look pretty easy, but you got to think that Watts might be looking for a little bit more fuel after leading the whole way. Will he have enough fuel on board to push back? He had the shorter stop. He's going to have a hard time here, I got to think.
He's Watts, but what he needs is Jules. And a lot of them. Battle again, Justin Hall and Peter Zhang. Hall gets to the lead in this group, which is 11th place. Peter Zhang's 12th. They are in a little bit of a battle all to themselves with Andy Cosick 6 seconds up the road and Dakota Knapp 6 seconds behind. Not really a great chance of catching the group ahead or being caught by the group behind in the final 2 laps. Gilliland and Trask changing places for 4th and 5th though, and Trask has another little look at it here. And Gilliland gets a late apex and holds on to 4th for the moment. 2 laps to go as the leaders cross the line. Joshua Soto still leads. Watts is thinking about what to do, but I wonder if the pace has picked up for them. Crossing the line, update the timing. Yes, it has by 1.5 seconds per lap. Joshua Soto has turned it on, and he feels comfortable to push on hard to the end of the race.
Yeah, that looks like a man who's just gotten the call that he's got fuel to the end, and he is going hard. Where were those 207s for the last little bit? I think we know where, but impressive little bit there, and we'll have to see what that battle shakes out like.
Be a little disheartening to Andrew Lanning, who would have seen himself catching them for the last 15 or so minutes, and now not happening anymore. Soto displaying his dominant form in this car and in this kind of racing. Look, I think Owen Watts has the highest iRating of anyone on the grid today. By a margin.
A few hundred. Nick Dwornik has a 4,100.
So he does. Yep. It doesn't really matter if it's gained from another car or a different type of racing. This is a type of racing all to its own in these Mazda MX-5s.
Our leaders are still tight together, and fourth and fifth are still tight together. Gilliland managed to get by for fourth a lap ago, and he's been holding off Davis Trask. He got a good push down the back straight up the hill, and we'll see. It looks like he's getting another one again. Not entirely sure what the plan is with the pushes here. I guess Trask is signaling he wants to stay behind at this point. We'll see if that changes as we get to the white flag here.
No, I think it's don't get caught by Jordan Butler. Look at him right there behind them. Catching a little bit. 1.5 seconds off Davis Trask means he's half a second, just 0.5 away from hooking onto the slipstream. The white flag will be readied at the start-finish line for Watkins Glen, though, for the final lap of round 5 of the ChampCar iRacing Series for 2023 here. Barney's waving the life out of it, and Joshua Soto leads. He's saved fuel all so far this stint. Owen Watts, who sits behind, might not have enough fuel to attack him on the final lap, but is well placed to do so if he can.
And a little bit of lap traffic ahead might make this interesting. They got David Warden in that purple car. That may be a factor as they go into the inner loop here.
So if he thinks he can, now's the perfect opportunity for Owen Watts to attack. And he gets a little bit of a slipstream, and is he going to get around the outside into the bus stop? He'll just cut across and take the race lead away. So now on the final lap, he leads. Soto looks to come back underneath from the exit of the inner loop into the carousel section, but he's not able to do so. Watts still leads, and Soto needs to brainstorm away between here and the checkered flag to try to take that race win back. Every corner is an overtaking opportunity, though, in these cars. No corner is an overtaking opportunity in F1, apparently, but this is not that type of racing. It's so slipstream heavy. There's no dirty air. The slipstream is powerful, and the horsepower is not. And there is 0.15 of a second between them. Only a couple corners left on the lap, and Watts preemptively comes across to defend and forces Soto around the outside of the heel of the boot. Takes away one more opportunity to pass. It's either the top of the hill or the penultimate corner or the final corner or a slipstream to the checkered flag. Those are the only options left for Soto to try to snatch it away, and he hooks a mean drift coming out of the boot as well. No grip, even if he's got the fuel and got the power. Watts is a couple car lengths clear. Final corner is pretty quick. So with the checkered flag in sight, Soto led coming to the white flag, but Owen Watts leads coming to the checkered flag at Watkins Glen.
Davis Trask has got himself too wide with Andrew Gilliland, but that's just gotten itself sorted out as they come into the final corner. And it looks like at the line, it's going to be Davis Trask, Andrew Gilliland, and Jordan Butler narrowly behind, not quite having enough to go and take top 5 finish away from either of those two.
There's only 4 more battle groups coming to the checkered flag on the final lap. Ray Lombardi trying to hold off Carlos Reyes for 8th and 9th. Reyes started outside of the top 20. Now he races his way into 9th behind Ray Lombardi. Mark Kruger and Dakota Knapp a little bit behind them. Aaron Siciliano and Ken Copeland behind that, Sean Saputra and Nick Dvornik, and you are seeing from the drivers who took no tyres or only left-hand sides how worn out the rear right tyre is. These cars are so loose, so pointy, trying to put the traction down out of the slow corners. That's a good run out of the final corner for Knapp, but he is not going to catch Kruger. Love's almost caught Siciliano, and
he's run out of fuel. Oh no, and speaking of Siciliano, a little bit of contact there between Copeland and Siciliano going into the final corner. Oh, that's a tough one. And that's going to be the end of the race for Siciliano, I have to think. He manages to get the car going again, but that's going to have cost him some time. And Copeland sheepishly takes the checkered flag, as does Jared Cubitt, and that's Nick Dvornik right behind.
And has Nick Love run out of fuel and not been able to get to the checkered flag on that final lap?
Yeah, he's cut the boot all the way out. So he ran the cup course and has parked himself now on the apex. I think he's asking for a push, but I'm not sure it's going to be for much because I believe the penalty for that is the lap not counting, unfortunately for him. Get some help though from Colin. Get some help from Colin Lounsbury. That's the spirit.
He doesn't believe in a soft hit. That's a jackhammer movement to get Nick Love moving. We are gonna find out. Lounsbury trying to push Nick Love to the checkered flag. Ka-chow. But we know Owen Watts with the race win. Joshua Soto, Andrew Lanning, Davis Trask, Andrew Gilliland, Jordan Butler, Orlando Harrell, Ray Lombardi, Carlos Reyes, and Andy Kosick as the top 10 at the end of that one. Let's see what happens for poor Nick Love. I think that counted. It says it's calling Nick Love same number of laps counted as a lead lap finish in 22nd. Interesting. Counting down the rest of the results though, and hopefully we'll see some of our drivers come chat with us. Peter Zhang, Justin Hall, Kyle Robertson, Mark Kruger, Dakota Knapp, Ken Copeland, Aaron Siciliano crossing the line with a wounded car, but he fought right to the end. And Nick Dvornik, Sean Butcher, Tim Wire out top 20. Scott Grinnell and Nick Love being classified as lead lap finishers. And David Warden, Bowie Suin, Charles Kowalczyk, Azmuth Mohammed, and Alex Harrison, Jared Cubitt, 1 lap down. And then Alan Wells, that looks like 2. Ben Rose, 3 laps down. Ian Giebler and Colin Lounsbury, 4 laps down. Bill Salen, 4 laps down. Garrett Meyer, 10. And Aaron Thorpe, 1 lap short of the halfway distance. Palermo, Joshua Jack, Thomas Reyes, retirements. It looks like Greg Platt never started this race. What did you make of all of that, Devin?
Well, it was a heck of a busy race at the start, and then we got a little bit of a fuel save battle in the middle, and that's what you love to see. No good race complete without a good little fuel save battle in the end. But I got to say, Owen Watts and Josh Soto, they kind of put their foot on the throat of that race, and they never really took it off. Those two were so in control, so impressive throughout the entire race. And I'm looking forward to having them in the booth and seeing what we hear in the retrospective. But in the meantime, I've managed to find here Andrew Lanning. Andrew, a heck of a race there, and you spent a little bit of time in the second half on no man's land, but it was really busy for you off the start.
Yeah, it was a little busy in the beginning, just trying to keep up with Owen and Josh, and kind of had an interesting moment where they both slowed up, and then my fuel saving strategy went out of the window.
Were you trying to save a little bit of fuel in the second half of the race there, or were you foot to the floor trying to catch up?
I was foot to the floor there at the end. I wound up taking about 6 seconds more fuel than Owen did in that stop, or at least that was the gap when I came out of the pits.
Yeah, we were kind of wondering if you're going to be chasing them down, because it looked like you took 4 tires and the other guys only took 2.
I didn't take any.
Oh, well then, I got that all completely wrong. Impressive pace there then in the middle for sure. And it's your first ChampCar race of the season, I believe, but not your first one overall?
So I had joined, probably 4 or 5 years ago. I did 1 or 2 races and then kind of dropped off the face of the iRacing planet. And then here we are back again. We're actually planning to field a ChampCar team here within the next year or 2 in real life.
Nice. What you got in the build plans?
Oh, we're thinking an E46.
It's a good place to be, a good competitive car. Well, we hope to see you out there. And if you stick around for the next 3 races, you might even get your name in the draw for 250 champ bucks.
That'd be pretty sweet. And to everybody who's going to be down at Hallett, make sure you say hello. I'll be volunteering.
Hopefully cross paths with some friends. Thanks for coming out. Anyone you need shout out tonight?
Dakota Knapp, my teammate. We have raced together for a real long time, so glad to see him out here for his first one too.
Cheers. Thanks for coming out.
Well, I think we've got the full complement of the podium. So Joshua Soto with a second place. Thanks for joining us. Well, talk us through that 60 minutes from your perspective, because we can speculate, we can look at tire changes and pit stop numbers, but what happened? What did you do, and what happened?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was just messing around with a new strategy, trying to. Well, first I was seeing how much pace I had in the race and things like that. Then I was just went into fuel saving mode. Started giving people spots and stuff like that, so I can just save fuel. Trying to do an undercut, but then it ended up working because I ended up coming out with less fuel than I needed. So yeah, that's pretty much what happened at the end of the race. I was just fuel saving and things like that. But yeah, yeah. Before the pit stop, I was saving fuel, and after the pit stop, I ended up having to save more fuel. So it's really interesting.
Now, I've got some ballpoint pen on the back of a napkin that calls you championship leader after all of that. Did that play into your mind at all when you're battling for the race win here, or is it all glory on a Wednesday night?
Oh yeah. I was really just trying to stay out of trouble as well. I realized that the people I was competing with didn't show up to the race. So yeah, it's definitely just try to stay out of trouble and just be able to do the race, and ended up with the podium. But yeah, it was overall a good result for me.
All these cars are always interesting, and I think play to your strengths. We got some others and some other circuits coming up later in the year that maybe might not, but overall, there is still a couple more appearances for the ND Miata, and it's been good to you.
Nice. I'm looking forward to it.
And before we let you go, I'm sure there's a couple people you'd want to thank or shout out.
Yes, I'd like to shout out my friends and my family, and also the league, the ChampCar iRacing League, for putting on the series and things like that, and also you guys, the broadcasters. You guys do a great job, and yeah, that's pretty much.
All right, see you in 2 weeks' time at COTA, hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
Well, now Devin Peters has the absolute honor of speaking with our race winner.
Yeah, I'm here with Owen, and Owen, heck of a race. Busy at the start and controlled at the end by the looks of things.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting race. Lots and lots of fuel saving. I think me and Josh had the same idea throughout pretty much the whole stint. And then it sounds like we ended up in the same situation coming out of the fuel stop. So luckily we were both kind of under the same strategy, and we got to race hard for the last 2 laps, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, going off the pit stop times, it looks like having the shortest stop also means you win the race.
Yeah, there was definitely a bit of luck to that. I think if Josh put enough fuel in his car, he definitely would have left me in the dust. But seems like we both underfueled. So there, after the fuel stop, we did a lot of fuel saving, and I think we both saved up enough fuel to fire the hammer on the last 2 laps and race hard. So yeah.
Second race of the year here for you in the ChampCar series. Picked a good time to get back into it, though. Eligible now for that second round of the $250 Champ Buck door prize draw. Should we expect you out some more?
Yeah, for sure, man. Just a lot going on in real life, but I love getting on the sim and racing with you guys. It's a lot of fun.
It was a pleasure to have you out, and a good race from your end. Anyone else you need to thank for your race tonight?
I'd like to thank my mom and dad and girlfriend for cheering me on tonight.
cheers to you for putting on a good show.
Thanks, guys.
Well, Haynes, that was a round at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, I think 38 cars in the end took the start there. It sure looked like it, and looked like it in parts through the race. Unfortunately, when you race close, accidents can happen, and it was a challenging car with how loose and light it got at points, and a challenging circuit for sure here at Watkins Glen. But it goes to show why people love this track so much, and why everyone wants to race here. An amazing race outright with every kind of aspect we look for. Some close racing, a little bit of strategy as well. And in the end, just came down to timing it well at the end for Owen Watts, and he comes away with a race win. And there'll be a few drivers with some big smiles after that one.
Yeah, I gotta think it was a pleasure, and I think the right guys won in the end. You know, really good pace from both those drivers off the bat, and really tactical races all the way through, it must be said.
Yeah, qualify and pole, have the shortest pit stop, and you'll take the race win. If only it was that easy. We saw across 60 minutes that it wasn't. Next round for the ChampCar iRacing Series, as I said, in 2 weeks' time, May 31st at Circuit of the Americas. In the TCR cars, that will be oh so interesting to see. If you want to get on the grid with us, head to forum.champcar.org. And right at the top in the forum is the ChampCar iRacing Series section with all the information on the schedule, on the prizes, and how to come race with us. If you just want to watch, of course, we'll be live here again on YouTube with HJBC with the coverage. So whatever way you want to stay involved, you can. We look forward to seeing you there. And have I missed anything in these closing remarks, Devon?
Sounds like you covered it all to me.
Well, what a race. What a circuit. We look forward to doing it all again in 2 weeks' time. Circuit of the Americas. Mark it in your diary, May 31st. See you then.